The story you've been told is a lie. The story is that just before the millennium, the internet struck. What began as a military tool exploded into something global.
An online network called Internet.
Reshaping everything. It created this network, this worldwide web, this new connected humanity. It changed how people saw the world, and with unprecedented access to information, it changed how the world itself worked. It was one of those rare moments in history that seemed to split time into before
to the internet
and after. We tell that story as if it happened here, around the millennium. But while the basics of that story are true, this is a lie. The internet revolution didn't happen here. The truth is that it hasn't happened yet, but it's about to. Before we talk about when the internet revolution will hit, we need to understand why it hasn't hit yet. From the beginning, people imagined the internet doing two things. First, it would connect people across the world, break down borders, bring communities closer together. And second, it would democratize information, spread it universally, and in doing so, reshape political and social power from the bottom up. It would change the world the way the printing press changed Europe. If information was power in the hands of everyone, global power would change. While both of those features matter, we're going to focus on the first one, because as much as it's part of that big story we tell, it hasn't really happened. There are 4 barriers that hold us back from that internet we talk about. In talking about each of these barriers, we're going to ask 2 questions. First, how does it distort what the internet looks like? How does it make it different from the one that we imagine? And 2, when might the revolution, the one that we all think already happened, actually come? The first barrier, and by far the biggest divider between who's online and who's not, is wealth. Right now, 68% of people on Earth use the internet regularly. That means nearly a third of humanity is still offline. If you graph countries comparing GDP per capita and internet access, the pattern is clear. Richer countries have more people online. And that's it. Plain and simple. Money matters here. Poor countries have less internet, period. And so it makes sense to think that the real internet, with all the world online, will only happen when the whole world develops. And that's true with one big asterisk. It's true that when countries get wealthy, they get internet. But in the last few years, lots of global development people have been betting big that it works the other way too. That if a country gets internet, it gets wealthy. And so there's been this growing network of NGOs focused on bringing internet to the developing world, with the goal of pushing that development forward. And there's a story for exactly how this works. To develop, most countries, the US included, needed to build physical infrastructure. Banks, libraries, and phone lines. But in Kenya, the streets aren't lined with telephone poles. 3G internet rapidly connected the country, allowing it to leapfrog over whole developmental stages that other countries had to trudge through. And in the case of Kenya, this meant becoming one of Africa's richest nations, far faster than countries ever could before the internet was around. In other words, Kenya didn't get rich and then get internet. Internet was part of what brought wealth to Kenya. And so when it comes to nations looking to develop, this is a priority. Internet is a priority. And that means that the process of these now poor countries joining the online world could be even faster than we think. But until then, with the bottom third of humanity missing right off the bat, this isn't a connected world. It's a distorted one. Mapped, that distortion looks like this. Countries here are resized to reflect the number of internet users. Compared to the real world, 3 distortions stand out.
First, wealthy places like the US, Western Europe, South Korea, and Japan
are massively overrepresented. Second, Africa is barely visible.
And last,
while China and India, where about a third of humanity lives, are huge on both maps, China pulls way ahead of India online.
And the number of Chinese people online
has grown even larger since this map was made in 2013.
And so looking at this map, good news. China, this giant nation, is coming online.
And with so much of the world still offline, this should be a big deal. That should bring us way closer to that vision of a connected global community. And it would, but it doesn't. And that takes us to barrier number 2.
Save the dream.
In the early days of the internet, there was a dream.
Contact anywhere on Earth.
That this new age of information would liberalize the world. And it arrived at the perfect time.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The Soviet Union had just collapsed. For decades, the Berlin Wall hadn't just blocked people from moving freely, it had blocked information.
Between the free world and the communist world.
Many in the West credited the fall of the Eastern Bloc itself to projects like Radio Free Europe, which broadcast Western media into communist-controlled East Berlin.
On Broadway.
With Europe reunited, the internet looked like the ultimate tool to keep it that way. In the West, a free press, access to information, had long been the cornerstone of democracy. But that same year, in China, something different was happening. Another pro-democracy movement, a student protest in Tiananmen Square. That protest was met with a violent crackdown and a massacre. The Soviet Union had just dissolved. Communist China wasn't going to. The physical world could be controlled with guns and tanks, but the online world was different. For the Communist Party, it was a threat. As soon as online forums emerged, anywhere users could post content for the world to see, they were blocked. In the decades that followed, Chinese companies developed their own version of these websites, ones that could be monitored by the government and blocked from the outside world. So yes, 78% of China is technically online, but on the internet you see the one built on global platforms like Google, YouTube, Wikipedia, those 1.1 billion Chinese users, the second largest country on Earth, is almost entirely missing. And it's not just China. In 2010, the Arab Spring exploded across the Middle East, fueled by Facebook and Twitter.
It's been called the Twitter revolution.
With the internet behind it, new pro-democracy movements were gaining momentum in real time. This was the pro-democracy, people-empowered version of the internet before they all failed.
Seeing the role that social media was playing,
governments in those countries
tightened their grip on the internet.
Egyptian government shut down the internet.
Then, just like the revolutions themselves, that too spread.
Iran isn't an Arab country. It wasn't part of the Arab Spring, but its leaders were watching. And over the next decade, it built one of the world's most aggressive censorship regimes.
The Iranians disconnect from the standard,
blocking news and social media, and just like that, Iran too
faded from this online map.
And that brings us back to Russia. 2 decades had passed since the Soviet Union fell, and now Putin was firmly in control.
What started as a crackdown on illegal activity quickly turned to censorship.
News outlets like the BBC were blocked, then social media.
It wasn't a total ban. Some sites were fully blocked, but others, like YouTube, were just throttled, deliberately slowed.
This kind of selective blocking is now common.
Dozens of countries, like those in the Arab world and the former Soviet Union, follow this model.
Much as these walls shape life inside those countries, they also distort our view from the outside. It's hard to estimate exactly how much these partial restrictions skew the makeup of the online world, but huge parts of the global internet are missing. And that undermines one of the internet's biggest promises.
The internet, that anyone in the world with a computer...
That hasn't happened. Not when entire nations are cut off. And unlike the wealth barrier that's slowly dissolving as countries get richer, these political firewalls aren't falling. It's hard to know when this second promise, democratize information, will finally be realized. But it hasn't been yet. Before we get to the final and most important barrier, we need to mention one that's more subtle: age. This is a breakdown of the age of people using the internet around the world. To make it easier, let's estimate the number of people in each age bracket based on the total number of that population, and compare that to the physical world. Even putting aside wealth or censorship, older people are less likely to be online. Even for seniors who are online, they spend about 30% less time on the internet than the internet native millennials do. Older people are disproportionately missing from online life. It might be hard to see why this particular demographic quirk matters, but let me explain. In most democracies, older people vote way more than young people. And over the years, campaigns have sprung up to fix that imbalance. Most famously in my lifetime,
Right to rock the
Claim your power!
the message was clear. If young people aren't represented in the political system, the system doesn't work. But right now, the political world skews old.
Whatever happened to all those young voters?
The internet has the opposite problem. Much like a democracy, the online world is controlled by everyone. It represents a lot of how we see our shared world. But older people are mostly absent from it. And this sheer demographic difference between the political world and the online world might help explain this growing sense that governments are becoming disconnected from reality.
How do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
And sure enough, when we look at how Americans feel about how the nation is being governed over the last century, a fall-off in satisfaction happens right around the time that this online world takes shape. The world we see online is a young one, but the world that legislates, the world that votes, is old. Whether we know it or not, that disconnect that people feel could very likely stem from this one big distortion in the online world. So, when does it end? When young people get old. When, inevitably, the first generation that grew up with the internet, millennials, gets here. And everyone is an internet native. And that brings us to our final, most intense, and most ancient barrier: language. It's hard to know exactly how much of the internet is in English, but among the top million websites, only 52% are written in English. And as an English speaker, that half of the internet is where I spend all of my time online. It's where I have to spend it. Roam around the physical world and you'll immediately find yourself bumping into other languages. In a foreign marketplace, you can use gestures or facial expressions to try to buy vegetables. The online world is different. For really simple things, people rely on tools like Google Translate to bridge the gap. But for anything complex, that quickly falls apart. Interactions are either forced into a shared language, usually English, or they don't happen. With no good way to bridge the gap, language groups just stay separated. And so even for someone speaking the most common language online, the actual number of online people I can connect with is tiny. And if you belong to a smaller language group, it's even worse. Hungary has one of the highest rates of internet use in Europe, but only 12% say they could read an article in English, meaning that most of these internet users are confined to just the tiny percent of the internet written in Hungarian.
And this story repeats across small language groups worldwide. This is really important to understand. This isn't about who they can't talk to, who they're shut out from. This is equally a story about all the worlds that you are shut out of.
In the physical world, language usually isn't a bottleneck. People live locally. Most interactions happen within a shared tongue. But online, where communities can form no matter where people live, language becomes the final barrier.
A barrier that no satellite or political revolution can change. If you're part of even the English internet, the biggest slice, billions of people are still missing. Their only presence filtered through the tiny pinhole of basic translation apps. And this is where the revolution might come.
Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a Armchair Expert. Soy Dan Rather y me acompaña la duquesa de Duluth.
Hola, hola.
This is Armchair Expert. It's a podcast with Dax Shepard, recorded in English.
So I'm really Dax Shepard, and you're really Monica Lily Padman.
That's right.
And now it's playing in Spanish.
Podría haberlo olvidado en los últimos años.
Casi lo olvido.
Sí,
I don't speak Spanish, but people who do say it sounds almost completely natural. This kind of tech could change everything. To explain how, I want to talk about Wikipedia. When Wikipedia launched in 2001, the idea was simple.
Get a free encyclopedia to every single person on the planet.
Anyone can read it, everyone can edit it. Experts added knowledge, volunteers organized and refined. Despite its critics, most studies show Wikipedia is fairly accurate, even more than some encyclopedias when you consider that it's updated to the minute. Wikipedia captured the spirit of what the internet was meant to do. Bring the world together, to share information. Except
Wikipedia was in English, a language that less than a quarter of the internet world speaks.
okay, they said, let's make a new Wikipedia for each language. But this had problems too. Turkish Wikipedia, Hindi Wikipedia, Arabic Wikipedia, they exist,
but in isolation. What's on English Wikipedia is very often not on other versions. And content written in Arabic or any other language will very often not make it to English Wikipedia.
Which means that even the largest language Wikipedia, English Wikipedia, only runs at maybe a quarter of its potential power. And that's a problem because unlike social media, where language bubbles kind of make sense, Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. A porcupine's lifespan
doesn't depend on what language you speak. Facts written in other languages are still facts. But right now, I'll never see them. And the biggest barrier to that is language.
Okay, some translation does happen. Bilingual editors who will manually rewrite some articles in a different language. But English Wikipedia alone holds nearly 4 billion words, and about 3 million more words are added every day. On the scale of the internet,
manual translation from volunteers
trying to do a translation which is not particularly succeeding
doesn't stand a chance.
The language barrier is tall. But again, there's this podcast, this English podcast, playing in Spanish. Large language models, like the one you're hearing now,
are starting to chip away at the walls that language creates online. And it's about to change everything. In Colombia, 60% of internet users use translation apps, basic ones like Google Translate, at least once a week. But ask any bilingual person and they'll tell you.
Those tools don't really work.
Sometimes they can get you the gist of a headline, but often they fail.
Could an English speaker like me contribute to Spanish Wikipedia or jump into a Twitter fight between two Colombian politicians? No shot.
But when it comes to this internet revolution,
that's what's about to hit. When it comes to translation, AI is getting better, fast.
It's starting to capture tone, emotion, nuance,
Things that even human translators struggle with.
and it has the power to keep up
In a way that no army of humans could. With this sort of capability, it's easy to picture a world where you, a
Spanish speaker,
with some porcupine trivia fact in hand, can add to English Wikipedia just as easily as to Spanish. And from there, it's easy to imagine all 341 non-English Wikipedias automatically translating and merging with the English version, and vice versa. And if you get there, it's easy to imagine a world where Wikipedia, or the internet writ large, doesn't really have a language, where instead it's a single repository for ideas.
all written or spoken or filmed in different languages and read or watched
общую человечность,
in whichever one you speak.
Celebrate the common humanity of all of us, all people on Earth.
So, where does that leave us? When does the internet revolution finally hit? Because if you're hearing this in English, your internet still isn't complete. It's being reduced by 4 big filters. First, only 68% of the world is online to begin with. Poverty means the rest of the world you don't see.
Second, 1 in 5 of the remaining people online
are under heavy censorship. They're not fully part of the world you see online.
Third, older generations, even if they are online, have a far smaller footprint in the online culture, the online world.
And fourth, if you're a monolingual English speaker, nearly 3/4 of the world are effectively cut out from the online world you live in. Some of this is changing. By 2050, we're on track for 90% of humans on Earth to have internet access. And by that time, the older demographic will be made up of internet natives. The political firewalls in China and Russia and Iran are harder to predict. All we can do there is stay optimistic. But language, for the first time in history, that barrier might actually come down. When this tiny wall in East Berlin came down, families reunited, the continent was remade. Another way to look at this early vision of the internet,
You can go anywhere on the
overwhelming desire for liberation,
is as 2 parts. First, yes, a definition of what the internet will be, connect people across the world. But second, it's a hope for what the internet will do. Democratize information, restructure power,
be the thing that builds a better world. Right now, it's hard to know when these digital walls, these walls that governments make, will come down. But an internet that connects people regardless of wealth, age, or language,
that kind of revolution might just be enough to reshape everything. In the decades since the internet entered our lives, a lot of that early hope has faded. Instead of a grand future of connectedness for humanity, there's a growing sense that the dream of the internet failed, that it delivered nothing but fractured politics, screen addiction, and tech monopolies.
Company called Alphabet.
But it's easy to forget that by global standards, we are early adopters. We may feel like we're looking at a broken internet and forget that we're looking at an incomplete one. And that moment, when the internet happens, the connected world, that revolution is still coming.